Welcome to another Bowrobics. In this session we're going to talk about growing a note. What do I mean by growing a note? I essentially mean a note that gets louder as it goes through. So here's a note. It's a nice enough note, but it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't do anything. Here is the same note. It got louder as it went through. Here's the same note again. That one got louder, but it also got more intense as it went through. And that is the type of note, the type of growing of note that we are going to look at. So why would you want to grow a note so that it became louder and more intense as it went through? Let's imagine that you are sitting, this is an A by the way, so let's imagine you're sitting nicely on your A and a friend comes along and sits on a G next to you. Then you could just let that happen, couldn't you? Passes through, disappears, and that's fine, but you could grow that sound to the extent that by the end of it, one of you has absolutely got to move. So you grow the dissonance to a point where it's become really uncomfortable and you are pretty desperate for your friend to move, or the other way round. It's become fairly unbearable and it's you that moves up. So whichever way that works, the point is that you've grown the note to such a degree of A, volume, but B, intensity of sound, that it makes one of you move to the next note. And essentially, that's how our harmony works, isn't it? It's steered on by the creation of tension within the harmony and then the resolution of it. So the fact that that happens makes one of you move to your next note. It propels the harmony forward. Think about cadences. So we get to the end because we can't stay there, and we can't stay there either, so we'd better settle back there. And you can either just let that happen, or you can really play into it. So the ability to shape your notes and to increase their intensity as well as their volume is a really useful thing for responding to and steering and adding to the harmony that's already within a piece. So what am I doing then in order to grow that note? What is it that makes it increase in volume but also increase in presence and intensity? I'm starting further away from the bridge than I would normally allow anybody to start. So long way further north than I would usually be. Consequently, I have absolutely no pressure on the bow at all. I'm playing with one hair, half a hair. In fact, I used to have a violin teacher who would say, play with half a hair only. How am I doing that? I've got my ring finger taking the vast majority of the weight of the bow. I'm doing more to lift it off the string than I am to keep it on there. And I'm hardly playing it at all. As soon as you put any pressure on, that distance from the bridge, the string just cannot support it, so the sound will be terrible. You have to, if you're going to play this far away, just tickle it, half a hair on the string. But as soon as you get going, there's quite a long way to travel, isn't there? So you've got to set off as soon as you start to move. And I'm doing it just by allowing this arm, which is very relaxed, isn't it? Because it's always very relaxed in our bowing arm. If it's out here and up here, again, you stand no chance. So this, all of this, extremely relaxed. And the way to move towards the bridge is to just allow the whole thing, particularly your hand, the weight of your hands, to just sink slowly, heavily towards the bridge. Just allow it to go. So you're not doing anything to kind of keep the bow parallel to the bridge like you would normally try and hold it in this plane. You're allowing the weight of it to just move towards the bridge. So the whole thing is very much just sinking down in the direction of the bridge. And as you travel, you're taking what this finger, your ring finger, is doing. You're just gradually losing the support of that, and you're adding weight, you're adding intensity effectively with the middle finger that's on the bow. So it starts, that middle one, it's doing absolutely nothing at all. And as I get nearer the bridge, my ring finger is now redundant, and this middle finger doesn't work if you start in the middle. The middle finger is taking over. And by the time I'm at that most intense part of the sound, that finger is doing all the work, and it's working really quite hard. In the same way that when I said it, when you start, if you put too much pressure on, you're going to get a terrible sound. In the same way, if you put too much pressure on and you get too close to the bridge, it will tell you. They're very communicative, these things. They will say very quickly if you've got the pressure or the speed wrong. So the other thing is that if you're too quick, you lose the control and you lose that building of intensity. If you're too slow, you're never really going to get the best sound, because you're just kind of squashing it out of the instrument. So there is an optimum speed at which to travel. And I think to start with, particularly when you're this far from the bridge, if you are too slow, very, very hard to get it to speak. So once you're there, just rely on this ring finger. Trust it to take the weight. Absolutely tickle it, but do let it move. Don't be so fearful of starting the note that you creep in really slowly. You have to move the bow. And when you practice it, experiment so that you do actually start too far from the bridge, just so that you learn where the optimum place is. Experiment so that you do push it too near the bridge and you do get that terrible cracking sound on the way. It's allowed. You know, the making of terrible sounds on these things, it's an acceptable part of learning how not to do something. It's an acceptable part of the process of working out where your best sound is. You've got to make some terrible sounds along the way so that you know where they are and you know to avoid them. But if you never, particularly near the bridge, if you never overdo it, if you never get too close to the bridge and you never put too much pressure on, you're never going to get that absolutely fabulously intense but very dangerous sound that happens just before you cross the line too near the bridge. So do some experimenting. Don't be afraid of pushing it too far and making the sound crack. It's fine. It's all part of learning where the best bit of the sound is and what the optimum combination of speed and pressure and distance from the bridge are going to be. You might not want to know this, but it's going to be different on every viol. It's going to be different on every string on every viol. So start it. Pick a string that you like. There are always strings that you find you feel a certain degree of safety when you play on that string. You know you can get a decent sound out of it. So pick a string that you're good friends with and experiment with that first. And then once you've learnt a few things on that string, pick a string that you're slightly more frightened of. So maybe deliberately pick the top string. All the same principles, all the same rules. How far? It's not going to speak, is it, up there? There's a decent sound. past it. So just play about on every single string. So far, I've started every bow at the tip. That is my favourite way round to do this bowing. I find it much easier to control the beginning when I'm playing at the tip and supporting it from out here. You have to be able to do it on a back bow as well. And the problem with the back bow is that there's a lot of weight here that is automatically in the string. So when you start at that end, I said just play with half a hair. Half a hair is enough. I think that's harder to achieve at the heel. But the principles are the same. So you've got to allow the bow, really feel that the stick is resting on your first finger. Really do employ your ring finger, taking all of the weight, feel it, lifting the weight of this, and feel the effect of not having it, and how much just, this is uncontrollably waving about in the breeze at the tip here. And it bounces, doesn't we all know that feeling? So use this finger to help. But the other really crucial thing when you're at the heel is that if you start with your wrist in here, it really is uncontrollable, this stuff at this end of the bow, totally out of control, really hard to get a gentle sound at the beginning. It's really important that you start with this in that shape. So you've got the stick resting on your first finger, not holding it, just resting on it. You've got your ring finger taking the weight, supporting all of this stuff. But you've got this drawing the sounds that way, rather than pushing in here, but then completely fighting against the direction you're trying to take the bow in. So imagine, don't even imagine, try it. Imagine somebody here just coming along and starting your sound for you. You're resting this finger, doing all the work, and it just moves. Don't think, right, I'm starting. Really hard, really hard. Very, very, very relaxed. And it just goes. And again, once you get going, nearer the bridge, nearer the bridge. Ring finger is completely off the hair by the end of it. Middle finger doing all the work. You'll find that you have favourite strings that the whole thing works on much better than others. You'll find that you've got a favourite bow direction. You find it much easier on a forward bow or much easier on a back bow. But you do actually have to be able to do both. The other thing that I know that you're thinking is, Ali, you're playing a bass and you're playing a 7-string bass. You've got loads of room. The sound on these things is always amazing. That's cheating. Fine. Over here, I've got my treble. Same rules apply. Obviously the whole thing is smaller, so you're going to have to rework out how far from the bridge are you going to start. But it is possible to get a clean, slightly wispy, but not crunchy sound further from the bridge than you would ever normally be allowed to play. All the support with this finger. Too close. So the whole principle is exactly the same. Drifting nearer the bridge just by sinking this hand lower down as you go along. Not by speeding the bow up, but equally not by being so worried about it that you don't dare to move. Risk it on the top string. How close to the bridge can you get on that top string? Bearing in mind that often when we look down from here, you think you're playing right on top of the bridge. And actually, one of the things I've learned from doing some of this filming is I'm never as near the bridge as I think I am. So just experiment until you fall off the other side even. Just so that you're absolutely sure where the bridge is. Because if you don't know where it is, how do you know how far away you are? How do you know whether you could have pushed it maybe 2 millimeters further? So same rules apply, whatever the size of your vial. Push that sound right until the risky bit where it's just about to crack, and that is the best quality, most intense, reserved for those fantastic moments where the harmony is really scrunchy. You've got to know where the parameters are so that you can push it to its fullest extent.